Welcome to IDP Plus Trends, our weekly show. We are going to break down two positions this week. We're going to break down the tight ends and linebackers. And what that means is we're going to give you three names from tight ends each and three linebackers each who we recommend drafting this year. Some might be, relied upon as your only tight end. Some might be recommended to pick up as a second tight end, and same thing with the linebackers. But these are guys based on average draft position, and linebackers based on rank right now. Steals at their position from our research, the research that we have done. So getting back into draft season right now, it is end of June. It's a crazy time. Time is moving fast. We are ready for our redrafts. So a lot of you guys are looking for that information right now. We are going to give you those players. I am Johnny Freaking Fantasy at Johnny Freaking F1. This is Steve, Average Joe's Fantasy, at AVG Joe's _FF. And before we get rolling, I wanted to mention, like I said, it is draft season. So right now, if you haven't checked out Trophy Smack this year, if you've never heard of it, go to Trophy Smack because it's draft season. Get ahead of the game right now with Trophy Smack's gorgeous draft boards, complete with player stickers so deep you couldn't possibly need them all. And for the first time, Trophy Smack has an IDP expansion pack for all of our defensive nerds like ourselves out there. So, Steve, we're getting into the show, man. How you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We're getting where I'm at, we're getting a lot of rain, which has been great. It's been just balls to the wall hot, but the rain has been helpful. It's been great for the grass. You can feel it's summer. It's officially summer now. Kids are enjoying summer camp. It's been a great time. I can't believe it's almost July. Like I was thinking about, like, man, 4th of July is coming up. My Celtics won. I'm happy. I didn't get to go to the Boston parade, but the Celtics won, so I felt really good about that. And yeah, 4th of July is going to be around the corner, which means we are like a month away before preseason. I mean, it's coming. Like, I'm ready. I can already feel the cool weather for the fall already. I'm jumping ahead. Let's go.
Man, like you said sunshine and rain. I've been getting a lot of sunshine here in Pittsburgh, but water and sun helps things grow. And you know what? This tight end position, these linebackers position, I find it this year. I don't know about you, but it just seems like it's deeper. It's not your top 8 guys, and then the rest are kind of question marks. You might get lucky. I think there are some real steals with these positions. How about you, man?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been doing content for a while in fantasy. I've been doing fantasy for way too long to admit. And I can't remember really having a season going into it where there's probably 4 or 5 guys, if not more at this point, that could legit be tight end 1. And that was never really a thing. Like, there was always like 1, maybe 2 guys that if you didn't have them, everyone else just kind of, we'll shove them into the lineup. There are actually guys that are going to put up and compete very closely. Like, some of these guys are going to be within 5 to 10 points of each other being top 5. All, like, you can just think about the rookies from last season. And now we got a rookie coming into this year. We're not going to talk about him much, but Bauer's coming in. Again, another fantastic prospect that we just, at this point, rookie tight ends are no longer the rookie tight end stigma. Like, these guys are coming in able to play right away. The first tight end I'm going to mention is, I'm a little bit of a homer in this one, is Jake Ferguson. I've got him at tight end 9. He finished as tight end 9 last season. So I think he can be a little bit better. I think tight end 9 is a steal for him because the Dallas Cowboys offense, they don't have the targets where, I thought they were going to go wide receiver. They've got the same receiving core from last season. You've got Lamb, you've got Cooks, Tolbert's going to get sprinkled in there. And then you got Ferguson, who was fantastic last season. Plus, just this offense in general does not have a running game that we're at least expecting to have any relevancy. So I expect this can be put a lot onto Dak's shoulder, which means he's going to be throwing the ball. And one of the great things this past offseason and this week is tight end university, which is why we're talking tight ends. It's like the big thing every single summer. Tight end university is going on right now. And Dak is one of the quarterbacks that has been there all week throwing to these tight ends and only continuing that relationship between him and Jake Ferguson, which I believe, again, tight end 9 is great. I think he's a nice little steal. I'll grab him every single time. In the last 6 games last season, he was averaging 7 targets a game, which is phenomenal for a tight end. So For me, he's my first and favorite tight end in this one. Obviously, you see the list here. There's some great tight ends. I'm going Ferguson for sure.
I respect that, man. I love Jake Ferguson. I think he's definitely a top 10, and he's reflected in these rankings, but also in mine, yours. But I think this is good value here. We're not going to go any higher than number 9. My guy's below that, and we're going to keep going further and further down the ladder here. But man, Jake Ferguson, he is one of those safe picks. I mean, you look at the average draft position here, 83. If you're in a 12-man league, that's your 6th, 7th round. That's not very early. And there's going to be some blow up games for Ferguson. Dak loves a tight end. Dak loves Ferguson. He loves to throw. So I think it's a great pick, man. I like that. Yeah. Safe call for a low price tag on draft day. So I like that. And that's where I'm kind of at here. I'm not really willing to spend the premium. I do like Kyle Pitts early. I do think the coaching scheme there, that the changes they brought in are going to help Kyle Pitts. And he's somebody who does intrigue me, but he burned me the last couple of years, So will they actually, when having Bijan Robinson with London there supposed to make strides, is Pitt's going to be able to break out too? I'm not sure. So you know what? I'm sticking a little bit further down too. I'm going to load up on wide receivers, load up on running backs, and come back and get my man at number 14. Maybe Ferguson too, number 10. But I like number 14, Pat Freiermuth. Of course, I'm in Pittsburgh. This is not a hometown call. I promise you that. I think Pat Freiermuth, when we look at the Steelers offense, man, I think he's a number 2 receiver straight up. I know they brought Roman Wilson in. This is somebody who I don't think is going to garner, Deontay Johnson's target share by himself. I don't think we can just swap in Roman Wilson and say that's Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson averaged over 120 targets in his 5 seasons with the Steelers. So this is a lot of targets here, and I don't think it's getting talked about enough. We do have an upgrade as well with Russell Wilson. I know a lot of people are down on Wilson. We have 2 quarterbacks. Sometimes, as John Madden says, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. So maybe that's Pittsburgh's downfall in this situation. But as far as Pat Freiermuth, man, I pencil him in straight up as the number 2 target here in Pittsburgh. I think, averaging coming into right now with his 3 seasons, he's averaging 5.5 targets per game. Also averages 4 touchdowns a year. Could it be more? Could we see 6, 7, 8? We're definitely going to see targets. This is a guy who gets 80 plus targets a year, Pat Freiermuth. This is not needs to hit a home run. This is Luke Musgrave is another guy who I really like. Luke Musgrave might get 3 catches for 74 yards and a long 40-yard touchdown. That is not really Pat Freiermuth's game. He is a volume tight end. And in the passing game, if you ask me what I'm looking for in a tight end in fantasy, it's straight volume. You don't have to be a freak athlete running the 99th percentile. If you can get volume, catch 5, 6 balls a game, you are money in the bank for me. Give me 10 to 12 PPR points, and I think that is what Pat Freiermuth is going to do for you this year. So Pat Freiermuth is my number 1 guy. Steve, I'm sending it back over to you for number 2.
Yeah, I like Muth. I think Muth is a great option. I think I've drafted him every single year because his value's always been so good. Last year, obviously, wasn't so great. But
let me say one more thing. Say one more thing about Freiermuth. A lot of people say that Russell Wilson doesn't throw to tight ends, which is true. But number 1, what real weapon at tight end has Russell Wilson ever had in Seattle and Denver? I mean, Greg Dulcich, I don't know who he's going to be good with. But man, we're in the black and yellow. We always got tight ends here, so there's no stigma for me. I'm all in on Pat Freiermuth. I think Russell Wilson's going to find him because, quite frankly, it's not Pittsburgh unless you hear Muth, unless you hear Heath. So, back to you.
Yeah, no, I think he's a good pick. And again, just looking at the list, there's just so many really good tight ends. Now I'm going to go a lot further down. I'm actually going to go tight end 24 here, which is going to be Jonnu Smith. Look, I know Jonnu Smith's going into a new team. He's going to, obviously the Dolphins, who is a very high, fast-paced type of team. And I actually think that fits Jonnu's game really well. He's a very athletic tight end. And I think he's going to fit really well with this one. He is going to be that, safety blanket for Tua, right? We've got a guy who has 2 burners on the outside in Waddle and Hill. And Jonnu's going to take advantage of that in the middle. I think that actually is a really good spot for him. Now, I'm not saying draft him to be your number 1 tight end. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're in a position where you need to draft another tight end or get some depth for that role, maybe some matchups are really good, Jonnu's in the perfect spot. Last season, he was top 5 tight end 3 times, and he was the second tight end on the Falcons.
Sure.
You know, now some people will disagree with that because Arthur Smith thought Jonnu was, the top dog, but like he was not getting the snaps. He was not getting all the things that Kyle Pitts was. I know Kyle Pitts did not do well, but as the tight end too, Jonnu still performed really well. And he had flashes in Tennessee when he was there. Like Jonnu is a very athletic tight end. He's just not getting the love. I think this is a perfect spot for him in Miami. He doesn't have to be the guy. He could easily be that seam piece. He can be that over the 5 yards to get a first down. Like he's that kind of player. I'm not expecting a super large amount. I think you can get 8 to 9 points out of him every single game. I think that's where he's going to fill in. But I really like this as a nice piece to fill in depth and really kind of fill in that backup role.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve, man. Like you said, top 5 finishes 3 times, and Kyle Pitts was there, and I want to know how many top 5 finishes Kyle Pitts had. If Jonnu Smith had 3, I don't know if it was that many. He might have been the number 1 there. So Jonnu Smith, I definitely like. I'm a little bit shaky with you on the sense of Miami, they haven't used the tight end much. Will they this year? I think they definitely have a better tight end, the best tight end they've had in years. So, Jonnu Smith's a pretty athletic guy. So I think he fits in well, and I agree. If I'm taking a second tight end and I don't want to pay the premium, or if I'm saying, I want to take a shot on 2 late guys and not pay the price on a guy that might not work out, it's a great strategy. So Jonnu Smith, he would have been on if we would have said 5-6 names, he's on my list too. So love Jonnu Smith. I am going to move a little bit back up, not far, but I'm going to number 19 here, Cade Otton. Cade Otton was a 4th-round pick 2 years ago. This will be his 3rd season. Man, Cade Otton, I tell you what, he's an Iron Man for this team, for the Bucs. Played 98% of snaps last year. You got to be on the field. You got to be on the field to get attention, to get targets, snaps, block, be a good blocker, all that. So Cade Otton, I don't think is getting talked enough. I think this is a guy who we definitely have not seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to his production. A lot of people, maybe if you were in a PPR league, you may have rostered Cade Otton as your second tight end. Maybe you rode the wave like me and found out this guy's pretty damn good later in the year. But I'll tell you what, for Cade Otton, when we talk about what have you done for me lately, when we talk about recent memory, that's always on our mind, right? When we look at Cade Otton in the playoffs last year, the Bucs played 2 games. Let me tell you this. In those 2 games, Cade Otton tied Chris Godwin for the most receptions with 13. He had more yards than Chris Godwin by 75. And actually, the only guy on the team who had more yards in the playoffs last year for the Bucs than Cade Otton was Mike Evans. And actually, Cade Otton had more catches than Mike Evans in the playoffs, even though with the yardage. So, boom. 13 receptions, 154 yards, a touchdown in 2 games late in the season in the playoffs when the team really gelled well. And I'll tell you what, I don't think Cade Otton's done here. I really expect big things out of him, big consistency in year 3. And listen, I'm not sitting here saying Cade Otton's going to be a top 5 tight end. That's not my take. My take is I'm trying to play this position where I can get 10 to 12 points weekly and load up on my other positions and scathe on by, because that's what the type of player, like a Pat Freiermuth, I think that's what the type of player Cade Otton is. And I understand, you have Godwin there, you have Evans. Those guys are getting targets at an alarming rate, so it's never going to be a top 5 finish. But when we talk about consistency and a player who's this low in the rankings who can help your fantasy team, Cade Otton's my man. So a little bit of better in standard than PPR, I think, for Cade Otton. Maybe the target shares come up. Maybe the team realizes what they have, and at the same time, other defenses might take note that Cade Otton's not going to beat us this year. So we'll see how it goes, but I think this is going to be one of the guys I'm hunting here when we're talking about tight ends. Steve, back to you.
Yeah, I think Cade Otton is definitely disrespected in the tight end world. And like you mentioned, I think you have to understand the players that we're mentioning are not players that we're saying you go after and that's it. Like, these are guys that if you play your draft smart, you're drafting receivers, running backs that are going to have more value than the tight end. Because again, if your tight end's getting you 10 points, 9 points a game, then you feel pretty good because the rest of those positions you just drafted are going to be a lot better, and they're going to get you a lot more points. Like I'd go after flex all day than I would tight end. Now, of course, if we're talking tight end premium, this whole list is out the window. But you know, when you're talking standard PPR, half PPR, like this is a good play. And my last good play, it's gonna be Daniel Bellinger. I get it. You know, there wasn't a whole lot that he showed last season while filling in for Darren Waller, but Waller is officially retired. He's in his wrap season now. He's moved on. Bellinger at tight end 37, I think is a little bit of a disrespect. I get that they drafted Theo Johnson. So I think some people are thinking they're going to completely split, which is very fair. It's possible. Bellinger showed flashes his rookie season 2 years ago. And again, you have to understand there was a team like for the New York Giants that didn't have a healthy quarterback. You had, DeVito in there. You had Daniel Jones that was hurt. I mean, there was a lot of craziness going. So I can't completely put this all on Bellinger's performance last season. Mm-hmm. And, it's tough. You're a rookie who came into the league. You started some snaps. You played a pretty good amount of games. Then the Giants go after Darren Waller. How do you feel as a player, as a human being? How do you feel that they went after someone where they thought you were going to be the guy? So, you know what? It's over with. It's moved on. I think Bellinger is in a good spot. I know there's been this rumor mill of Bellinger possibly not even making the roster, which is completely crazy. I don't know where that rumor came from because Dayball's already said that Bellinger's the top of the chart for the tight end role. But the fact that he's tight end 37, there are 32 teams. That means there are 5 other tight ends who aren't even starters are ahead of Bellinger. So, again, if we're just talking someone you need to grab, I think he's going to be more of a waiver wire than a draft piece. But he is someone to keep on your radar because he will be the starting tight end. I mean, they have, again, rankings here. Theo Johnson, who's a rookie who is, I don't think as good as Bellinger. I think he's athletic, but I don't think he's as good of a tight end as Bellinger. Again, the disrespect. Like this, it's crazy to me. I hate the Giants, but I think Bellinger is in a position that I think he can actually be a surprise. I think he can finish into the 20 to 22 range, which is a nice bye week fill in or, things like that. And again, if we're talking tight end premium, I think he can get even better. So I'm interested to see how this offense looks, but I think Bellinger is someone who's getting slept on. The fact that he's outside of the top 32 teams blows my mind. I'm going to go take and swing after Bellinger than I would go after Theo Johnson.
And I'll tell you what, I'll do one more, Steve. I'm looking at number 30 through 45 here. 30, Jatavian Sanders. No, I'd rather have Bellinger. Colby Parkinson. No, I'm a Davis Allen guy. Hayden Hurst, haven't seen him in 3 years. So it's like all these guys, man. I mean, Theo John. And one thing about Bellinger is I'm like licking my chops over here. I'm like, oh, they drafted Theo Johnson. Thank you. Like Bellinger's ADP is going to keep falling. He's going to be down in those rankings. Nobody is going to pay attention to him. And you know what? He was sneaky good his first year there in New York. And we talk about how tough it was to be a tight end as a rookie. He did it, before Laporta was there. I'm not comparing him to Laporta as far as production, but like he was finding his groove with Daniel Jones. Then they bring in Waller. I'm like, man, I hope Waller doesn't do well because of that. Sorry, Darren Waller. I didn't mean to put a curse on you, but yeah, man, I think they did him dirty, and I'm glad to see they stuck by Daniel Bellinger, and he's their starting tight end. Like you said, man, this is a second tight end, somebody who has an upside shot. But when we're talking 32 teams and he's disrespected to 35, there's second tight ends on teams better than Daniel Bellinger. I'm not with that. So 100% with you. This is a number 2 tight end that I'm taking that might be an upside shot. So I like Daniel Bellinger a lot myself. Think Theo Johnson is just straight smoke. I'm not drafting him in any leagues, redraft, maybe dynasty, but I don't really expect him to take over anytime soon. So love Bellinger. My next guy, my third guy, last and final, I'm going to move up a little bit here. I wish I didn't have to say that because the community is definitely looking at Twitter. This guy's on the map right now, partly because 2022, when he did the combine, this is his going to be third year. But in 2022, his relative athletic score in the combine was a perfect 10. Actually, 10 was the number 1 ranking from 1987 as far as tight ends go. So, me, I'm not really like, oh, this guy did that well at the combine, like he's going to be that good. I don't really drink that Kool-Aid, but when you tell me this guy was the number 1 tester since 1987, yeah, I'm going to sleep on that, let that sink in. But Jelani Woods, man, this is what I'm excited for. You know, he had a part-time role, did well as a rookie in 2022. Unfortunately for him, fortunately now that we're getting to draft season, he last year in 2023 had a hamstring injury that put him out the whole year. So, you know, rewind it to last year, I'm like, hey, Jelani Woods, he ain't nothing. Then you kind of look behind the scenes what his RAS score was. You know, now you have Anthony Richardson throwing the ball. It's no longer Gardner Minshew. I'm excited for Jelani Woods. I think Richardson, this offense is going to do a lot of run pass options, throw it down the middle. So I think Jelani Woods is just somebody who has not been on the map yet. You look at track record, there's nothing really to show. Even in college, he went to Oklahoma State, Virginia. He didn't light up the world, but he was damn athletic. And I think that's what we're going to see this year. When you look at somebody kind of like Luke Musgrave, the size, the speed they have at that position. I don't know that Jelani Woods, you know, my number one thing is volume. I don't know that he's going to get that. There's other weapons there. They have Michael Pittman, Richardson runs. They have Jonathan Taylor, other guys who can catch the ball too. Adonai Mitchell they drafted. So that, you know, that maybe that dampers the average draft price and really kind of puts him back down there in a lot of managers' minds. But for me, I see the potential. And Jelani Woods, how I mentioned Cade Otton before, I don't think that Cade Otton, you know, could ever finish as a top 5 tight end. Jelani Woods, I think he has that potential. And whether it be this year, next year, sometime it's going to click for him. And it does scare me that he's in the Colts offense because, you know, we look back at the Colts after Dallas Clark, it was like Kobe Fleener was decent, you know, all these just like scrubs. But as of right now, Jelani Woods is a scrub, but he's somebody who I'm going to take a chance on this year as my second tight end. And I have the vote of confidence in him that maybe that by the end of the year, he will be my number 1 tight end, which is a part of a reason why I don't want to spend so much at the top of the list here. When you got guys like Jelani Woods, Daniel Bellinger, Jonnu Smith, who you can rely on late. So that is my 3 of 3, my third of third guy. But I think the upside's through the roof. Elite size and speed. He's already shown a little bit of flashes in that rookie year. So as long as he's healthy in OTAs, practice, when the season kicks off, I'm good with drafting Jelani Woods late. This is 209 overall. We're talking 20th round in a 10-man league. So dirt cheap for free, waiver wire fine, but don't be surprised if he's caught fire like a Puka or a Kyron, you know, Smith is, or Kyron Williams is a week 1 or week 2 waiver wire pickup and lights the world on fire. So Jelani Woods, I put my faith in you. Return it back. We're going to switch over. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, I believe in him. I believe in him. I will say this. I do. You brought back some memories of bare hands Dallas Clark, man. He was awesome.
But seriously, could you name me one fantasy relevant tight end after Dallas Clark? Because I couldn't.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, you've had some guys that maybe flashed a game or two, but yeah, Dallas Clark was the man. That was it.
Damn straight. Hey, listen, we're not just pretty faces here at IDP Plus. We have an entire suite of tools and rankings for both offense and defense, plus rookie rankings, injuries trackers, snap tools, premium articles, and more. Plenty more. Right now, get your first month for just $1 with the promo code MOCKDRAFT when you subscribe to the IDP Plus website. So go to idpguys.org. When you check out for your monthly subscription, make sure you type in the promo code MOCKDRAFT, and that first month will only be $1. So all our videos, all our Discord, our articles, you will have subscription for, and I guarantee you will stay. But just get on the wave now if you haven't already, because this is the time. This is draft season, folks. Other people have, so don't get left behind. Steve, we're going to move into linebackers now, man. We got 3 linebackers. Similar thing here. 3 linebackers who we're putting a vote of confidence in. We're drafting based on their ranking. Now, we don't really have an ADP. I'm going to pull up here my rankings from Dynasty Pros. Really good, really good rankings, really good stuff they do. So I'm going to pull my overall linebackers here. Give me 1 second. Let me stop my screen, present, and here we go. All right, Steve, you're on the clock. We got Foye, Roquan, Bobby Okereke, all these guys. You know, are you paying the premium, or are you sitting back and taking some guys later?
It's tough because I have grabbed one of these linebackers before pretty early to kind of start the whole, defensive draft craze. Because it's always funny. Obviously, you're always waiting for that one person to start it off, right? You're like, who's gonna be the one?
Yeah.
Who's gonna take that first linebacker?
No.
And I've done it before, but I will say the times I have won in fantasy has not necessarily meant was because I drafted a linebacker early. Like, looking at this list, and you and I were kind of talking before, like there are some really outstanding linebackers that I think you can get really late in this draft that will end up being just producing enough points every single week that you don't feel bad, not drafting a Roquan or, Zaire Frank. Like you can go after someone else and still get similar production out of these guys.
Yeah, man. Me personally, I don't pay the premium. It depends on your league. If you're playing with guys who are sharks, you're going to have to pay a little bit up front because these guys are going to go fast, especially the guys who you think, oh, I can sleep on later. You probably can't because someone's, itchy fingers to get one of your guys. So me personally, if I'm in a league where I'm playing with casuals, we'll call them out of lack of better terms, I'm not going to pick defensive players early. I'm not going to break the ice. Hey, I'll watch somebody take 2-3 players. As long as I'm confident in my research and I got guys who are, hey, I might have to jump. If I like somebody late in the draft, Damon Clark from Dallas, I might have to jump on him an extra round to guarantee that. But guess what? Rounds 15, 16, you ain't missing too much. So me personally, I don't draft early. I like to do my research and be confident and gauge the draft because if guys are flying off, now you got to move. But for me, I'm not looking through anyone right now, top 24. I'll tell you that. How about you? Who's the earliest you got?
I have one guy that's right in the top 24. I've got Frankie Luvu, linebacker 22 right now. I get it, right? You got Bobby Wagner, who's the middle. So you got Luvu coming on the outside. Now, this is a whole new linebacking core in general for Washington, so this can be interesting. But I like this play for Luvu. Luvu, is going into an defense that has Dan Quinn as his head coach and will run this defense, let's be honest. And the last 2 years, he's been fantastic. And on top of that, now you're putting him in a Dan Quinn type of defense where he's going to play that like Donovan Wilson type role that for the Dallas Cowboys, where he was that tweener, right? He got to play all over the field. He wasn't just a linebacker. He would play in the slot if he needed to. He'd play in the box. Like they moved him around. And I think Luvu has a position to kind of play like Donovan, but also can play like Micah Parsons. Micah was used as a linebacker and an end, and put him on the end. I think Luvu can play edge a few times a game. If put him in there, I don't know, say 10 to 12 snaps a game to give him an opportunity to get some sacks and move him around. Like that's the kind of ability. I'm not saying he's Micah Parsons, don't get me wrong, but Luvu I think has that type of ability to be a Micah Parsons, Donovan Wilson type of role where he's just going to be a moving piece all over the place.
Yeah, man, I respect Frankie Luvu. I forget what the stat was exactly. I want to say he was one of, I think it was 10, 15 of all time. It was 85 or more sacks, or I'm sorry, 85 or more tackles with 10 sacks. Somebody that can do that. I mean, you're looking at like, TJ Watt has done that. James Harrison has been on that list. Like, guys that really had tremendous standout IDP years. And we've seen two of them from Frankie Luvu already in Carolina. Now he goes to a Dan Quinn defense. I agree with you, man. This is not somebody who's just going to be your sack getter, just going to be your tackles guy. He's going to blend. And man, if your scoring is like a, tackle sack heavy, this when we're talking linebackers, it makes him more enticing. Me personally, I like to bank on the tackles. But hey, if my scoring says 5-6 points for a sack, I can't ignore that. I gotta pay Frankie Luvu some light. So if you're in a league like that, you're getting 5 or more points for sacks. I think Frankie Luvu is definitely going to be up your alley. So I like that pick a lot, Steve. My first guy, man, I'm really low here. I'm going real down on the linebackers here because I think there's some really good guys who are available very late. I mean, we're looking at. Here's your Frankie Luvu, 22. I mean, we've got Tremaine Edmonds. I'm not really a fan. Eric Kendricks probably is going to have a pretty solid year. Devin Lloyd, I like a lot. He's 25. That's really about the highest price I'd be willing to pay for my top linebacker. Number one, because I'm involved. You know, I do my research. I listened to IDP guys last year before I got asked to join the team. So I was, you know, doing all these deep dive searches. And if you're somebody that does that, there's no reason to pay the high price tag. Because guess what? If you whiff, say if you drafted Nakobe Dean last year and it didn't work out for you, aka or me, then you can go ahead and get Ivan Pace in week 8. You know, you can go ahead and pick up Nate Lamon in week 2, things like that. If you're sharp, if you follow us, if you're in the community, don't draft the linebackers early. You're going to have the best information for waivers, for starts, sits, inactives, all that information. So this is just my personal strategy, but I'm going late here. And not to say that I'd like to hang my hat and say that number 40 EJ Speed would be my number 1 linebacker, but you know what? If my offense is stacked and I'm in a 6-man, six position IDP league, I think if EJ Speed is your number 1 back, you have a good problem on your hands. I think EJ Speed's quite worth it at 40 overall. This EJ Speed, Zaire Franklin, we've seen him earn his stripes, play 2 years on special teams, then be deemed a starter. EJ Speed, it's like, rinse and repeat here with these Colts, man. EJ Speed was the same kind of come up, was on the team 3-4 years, didn't really have a role. All of a sudden, in his 4th year, 102 tackles and a sack. And if you looked at the game, you know, that's the overall box score stat line when it's all said and done. He pretty much didn't do much the first quarter through half the year. It was mostly half the year and later that he did his damage, which, you know, maybe that's a trend of the way the Colts are running with their linebackers. Hey, put Zaire Franklin, and right next to him put EJ Speed, because to this point they haven't had to pay EJ Speed much, and I think it's a really good fit. And this is his 5th year. We'll see what the cards are dealt with next year, if he stays, if he goes. But hey, this is his contract year. EJ Speed coming off 102 tackles in an abbreviated season, not by injury but by starting role. I'm really intrigued here, man. EJ Speed, if you're an IDP head, you already know him. He was already on your team or somebody's last year, but he's just getting disrespected in these rankings. I mean, you know, Shaq Thompson, 39, I respect him. He could probably have 100 more, 110, 15 tackle performance, but I don't think the upside in these guys, Bentley, we'll see what the new coaching regime, you know, does there. When we look, Christian Harris, number 41, great upside, maybe more than EJ Speed, but Christian Harris, I don't know what games they're playing there in Houston this year. So I think, man, Indy got him locked up. They got Zaire Franklin. They got EJ Speed. You know, you looked at the trajectory here, 102 tackles, and that was, I think, where it starts. I wouldn't be surprised if EJ Speed hit 130 tackles this year. I'm putting a vote of confidence in EJ, and I think you should too. So that's my number 1 linebacker to sit and wait on. And, of course, I like some guys early here. I mentioned Devin Lloyd. You know, I like Kaiser White, but Kaiser White, I like him if he's down at 40, not at 21. So this is with respect to the rankings here. So EJ Speed, when he's down at number 40, I sit back and I take advantage of that all day. So Steve, that's my number 1. I'm moving back to you for your number 2.
Yeah, I'm going to move up a little bit higher in the ranking. I've got Juwan Bentley, linebacker 37.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get it. Like, I can't understand the grasp of, don't get me wrong, linebacker is very deep. I mean, you're going to find some guys in this that are going to be, again, like you mentioned, you can grab later on and still get a top linebacker. I looked at stats from last season, and some of these guys were just, the number 1 linebacker last season in tackles was Bobby Wagner. I mean, I think he had 183 tackles, right? And the guy's like 99 years old. So the tackles are there. You got some guys who did stand out that you didn't, really think about. Like, I could tell you, Caden Ellis was not drafted last season in my one of my home leagues. Spillane was not really drafted. Some of these guys that really ended up standing out. And Bentley's one of those guys that, again, he might be drafted late into your league, but he's had over 100 tackles the last 3 seasons. He's had 3 sacks or more in the last 2 seasons. So not only is he getting after the quarterback, he's getting consistent amount of tackles. And I hate to say it, he's playing for a team that is going to be playing from behind a lot, meaning teams are going to be running the ball just to end the game. So what is Bentley going to have to do? He's going to have to get those tackles, because you're not looking at a team that, you think maybe I'm different. Maybe you probably agree the same way. I grab my linebackers based off of what I think the team's defense is going to be. If I think that defense is going to be on the field a lot, or if I think they're going to be a team that's going to have to stop the run because their offense is horrendous, that's a big factor to me. Like the Patriots, no one's scared of. No one's afraid of this rookie quarterback and these wide receivers. And, they got Ramondre Stevenson, right? That's who they've got in that offense. So you're going to have a team that's going to be playing behind a lot, meaning rookie mistakes, 3 and outs, right? They're trying to make up for it. And now you got to put Bentley back in there. And I think Bentley's going to, again, eat up those tackles. He's going to have 120, 130, 140 type of tackles, because he's going to be forced to be on the field having to stop the run. So the fact that he's linebacker 37, meaning he is now linebacker 3 at this point in a 12-man league, he should be your linebacker 1. Like, that's crazy to me. So, yeah, you could draft some of these other players. You're going to spend a lot more. And I've had to be in those situations where my league mates have been a little aggressive, grabbing some linebackers early, and you feel like you're going to miss out because you got to get some of these guys. I think you can feel confident in some of these linebackers we're talking about, that you don't feel rushed and you're still going to have a top 10 guy.
Mm-hmm. And Steve, you made a good point there about looking at teams. You don't have to look at, only depth charts or only read reports about players. If you simply look at the team and you say this team's no good, they're going to be out on the field a lot, right? So, hey, a couple of years ago, I'm no college scout. I don't even watch college ball. I was looking through depth charts. I said, oh, Colts are going to be pretty rough this year. Who do they got starting a linebacker? Oh, they drafted a guy 2nd round, Shaq Leonard. Shaq, it wasn't Shaq Leonard at the time, Darius Leonard. But, yeah, I took a chance on him, and I drafted him, I can proudly say. I didn't start him week 1, but, you bet your ass I started him from week 2 to 17. So, definitely agree with that. It's a good strategy, bad teams. And you know what? Juwan Bentley, I will say this. Juwan Bentley gets his when the season's done. It's not going to be pretty every week. You're gonna think about dropping him, week 5, week 7, something like that. But hey, time will tell. What Steve said is right. 100 tackles, couple sacks in there. If you can hit that threshold, you're helping your team out. So definitely Juwan Bentley is a guy who, and as far as the coaching staff, listen, I think if I'm coaching my high school team and I'm coaching it the way I was taught, what my coach said, that goes a long way into my method. So I think the same here with the Belichick and Mayo. I don't think stuff will really change, but it wouldn't surprise me if things do change. I don't know really other household names they have there to take his spot. So I think Juwan Bentley is definitely not a sexy pick, but sneaky. So I like it, Steve. I definitely like him at this point more than Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell, his upside is absolutely higher, but who is Jack Campbell? I mean, another guy, Alex Anzalone. Alex Anzalone, I do like. He was a Frankie Luvu type player, getting sacks too, but is he going to have that role again? Is he is Jack Campbell going to take? I don't know these things. These are unknowns. So I try not to look at unknowns, but in Steve's point, I do agree that Bentley's a great play here, great find. Very late, do not have to pay a high price tag at all. So Juwan Bentley, I do like him very late in the ranks. I am not going to move very much past that. I'm only going to go 6 spots. Let's see, Juwan Bentley was what, 37? Yeah, I'm going 6 spots below here, and I'm going Jerome Baker from Seattle. Now, Jerome Baker, I know he changed teams. I know he left us with a bad taste in our mouths, missing games for the first big chunk. Only time it happened in his career. This guy's pretty built well, and I tell you what, there's no Jordan Brooks. There's no Bobby Wagner in Seattle. I do like a guy, rookie Tyrese Knight. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits the field, but I'm not scared. I think if there's one guy that the reason why Tyrese Knight would hit the field, I think would be at the expense of Dodson. Tyrell Dodson they brought in. I mean, yeah, he did well in some games here and there, had 6 or 7 tackles, and I don't know if that's going to be consistent. I don't know if he can hold up. I don't know, maybe poor performance. They pull the plug and put Tyrese Knight in there. But I'll tell you what, I don't think Tyrese Knight's coming in for Jerome Baker. I think Jerome Baker is going to be the anchor of this linebacking core in Seattle. This is a multifaceted player. Steve mentioned earlier Frankie Luvu. This is maybe a guy who's a little bit safer on the tackles. But as far as sacks, yeah, he can get a handful. He's not Frankie Luvu when it comes to the sacks, but he can get them. You know, he's an outside inside backer. He's a hybrid guy. He's not too old. I think he's 27 years old, Jerome Baker. So definitely not somebody. And this is when we're talking redraft right now and dynasty. I do like Jerome Baker, but yeah, he fits the bill, man. I just think that 2023, I mean, in the 13 games he played, he racked up 78 tackles, average of 6 flat even. Then we look at 2022. He had 100 tackles. He's hit the 100 plus tackle threshold multiple times. All those years have also had inclusion of a few sacks, the highest I think being 6. So Jerome Baker, to me, at 30 or 43 is getting very disrespected. I think this is a solid LB2. I don't think the upside's through the roof. This is not somebody who's going to break to the top 10 in our rankings anytime in his career, I'd be willing to say. But Jerome Baker is definitely somebody who I want on my team. I think he's a safe play, not much risk at all. He's their number 1, and I think the upside's tremendous, you know, as far as sacks. And maybe you get 120 tackles in there with 5 sacks. So be interesting to see how they play him, if they're still going to let him, you know, go ahead and challenge the quarterback. I think they do, because he's definitely that type of player. He excels at that. So I like Jerome Baker here in Seattle. And guess what? This is me coming from, I need tackles. If I'm in a league where I'm getting 2 points for solos, 1 for an assist, and say 3 or 4 points for a sack, I think Jerome Baker is great. I think he's a great floor player and going to be safe for your lineup. So I love Jerome Baker, Steve. Back to you for number 3.
Yeah, I think it's funny how Baker and Brooks just flip-flopped.
Yeah, they did.
You know, I thought that was kind of interesting. So my linebacker, the last one I'm going to talk about, is Ivan Pace Jr.
Oh,
he's linebacker 53 right now, which I think is crazy because he is in their starting lineup as far as depth chart goes, which is great news. Because if you look at last season, so last season he started off with 8 tackles in the first 2 games each game, right? 16 tackles, fantastic. But he was not the starting linebacker. He did have a lot of snap share. I think he was about 60-70% snap. So he was in the lineup. But then he essentially was back to the bench and didn't really play anything until Jordan Hicks got hurt. And then as soon as Jordan Hicks got hurt, Pace comes in as the linebacker. When he had 100% snaps, this man was a beast. And it wasn't many. I get it. He only played 5 games where he played as the linebacker 1 and got the 100% snaps. But in those games, he was getting 9 tackles, 11 tackles, 8 tackles, a sack, interception. Like, he was just balling out. And I get it. He's undersized, right? I think that's what hurt him, you know, as far as his draft capital went, and as far as like where people just didn't go after him. But the fact is, he is linebacker 53. That is LB4 right now. If you're talking 12-man league. And he has the ability, because if he can play, like if he gets that 100% snap share, which is what we're expecting, I think he's going to probably get that 85 to 100. He is going to be an 8 to 9 tackle type of player every single game. Like, that's just the way he plays. And you can get him at linebacker 53. That is an absolute steal. Like, that is your linebacker 2 that you just drafted, or may even picked up on waivers. Who knows? Like, you know. Not everybody drafts 4 linebackers on a team. So the fact that he's down there so low just blew my mind. Like, you got Nakobe Dean higher. Blake Cashman, are you kidding me? No, he's not better than, you know, Pete Werner. He had flashes. Nope, not going after him.
Nope.
Like, look at these linebackers, and I'm like, why are you going after any one of those guys ahead of Ivan Pace? So for me, easy. I had him last year. I had him on a lot of my dynasty teams. And man, people are trying to go crazy to trade for him. I'm glad I still have him.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you for having him in Dynasty. I hope you still got him. I know you do. You haven't traded him. But yeah, I love Ivan Pace. This is one of my favorites. And if you're watching this, listening right now, just take a screenshot. 53 Ivan Pace, man. That's such disrespect. It's unreal. So, yeah, I love Ivan Pace. This is definitely a guy. I did two startups. He's on one of them. The second, I didn't get him because I missed out. Somebody else reached early. So, hey, rightfully so. I think that was a smart call for that person, and I can't kick myself. I just got Cody Barton later, someone like that, you know. So anyway, I love Ivan Pace. Think he's going to have a huge year. Again, going back to that relative athletic score, throw it away sometimes, right? These rookies are hungry. Little guy, hey, big dogs got to eat. Little dogs got to eat too, right? All right, I'm bouncing it down now. We're going to go deep. We're going real deep in it here. And I'm going to go to somebody who has not showed up yet on the field. I know you're probably thinking that's Diane Henley from the Chargers, but it is not. It's actually somebody from the AFC North, and that's Trenton Simpson from Baltimore. Yeah, not really too much if you look at the track record. 15 games this past season, 13 tackles, and a sack. Ugh, that's rough, right? But I'll tell you what. Patrick Queen is no longer in Baltimore. Patrick Queen is in Pittsburgh. The jury's out. Will he be an LB1 in Pittsburgh? Yeah, I still like Patrick Queen, but guess what? He's no longer in Baltimore, and they need somebody to step up next to Roquan Smith. And, you know, I've been reading a lot of I'll go on and listen. This is a tip for everybody out there. Google's good, but I love Twitter, man. I'll just go on Twitter. You don't if you don't have a Twitter, if you know somebody that doesn't have a Twitter, tell them just to get it for fantasy, for crying out loud. Because all you do is you type in a player in Twitter, and yeah, you might get some 10-year-olds comment about like what they think about this player, but you get some good information. And man, the team, the Ravens, are ecstatic about Trenton Simpson right now. This guy didn't see the field much this year, but that's going to change in year 2. If you read any blurbs from the Ravens, if you type in Trenton Simpson's name, you'll hear about how he's going to start next to Patrick Queen, how Patrick Queen is on his rival team and still saying glowing things about Trenton Simpson. So I find that very, aligned as far as good things are going to happen. Trenton Simpson, hey, he can replace Patrick Queen in the starting lineup. Is he going to replace his numbers? Probably not. But, is the upside there? Is this somebody who's going deep in the rankings? We're talking about outside of the top 50, 60 players. This guy, if you're in a 4 linebacker league, 12 people, he's not even making that threshold. Such disrespect. I think Trenton Simpson, even though he's not a rookie, he's going to have a breakout year. And I'm not going off any stats to back it. But just, the vote of confidence they have in their linebackers that they already do have, one being Roquan Smith and now Trenton Simpson. I think this is somebody who, again, like an Ivan Pace, when we fast forward here to end of July into August, they're not going to be here. Take a snapshot because it's not going to last long. These guys are going to go on the household name market. So Trenton Simpson, if you're doing a startup right now, pick him. He's dirt cheap, going to be great value. If you are doing your startup, your redraft in a month, I'm sure the price tag is going to be a little bit heavier, but hey, if it's reasonable, if we're talking about David Long Jr. and Nakobe Dean and Tyrell Dodson and Jermaine Pratt's, 100%, no question about it. I think Trent Simpson has way higher upside, and it's going to have a safe floor with Baltimore. As long as he's starting out there, I think he's pretty safe for 100 more tackles, and maybe he can get some sacks too, make some forced fumbles. So I think the sky's the limit for Trenton Simpson. We just have not seen it yet. So, Steve, anything you want to leave the viewers and listeners? This is where we gave our 3 tight ends each. We gave our 3 linebackers. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, just make sure you guys follow us. We got some great content still coming out. We're a good month and a half before redraft really starts going. If you're like me, I draft like right before the first week of the NFL season. I don't want to play with those injuries during training camp or preseason, but so we got some great stuff. Again, make sure you guys are following me. Make sure you guys are following Johnny. Make sure you guys are subscribed to IDP Plus. Make sure you guys go to the website, take advantage of all the promotions we got going on. Just get excited. This football season is going to be here before you know it. I know we're in that lull, right? We just got baseball, WNBA. There's not a lot going on. I get it. We'll push through. Enjoy your time with the summer. And we're grinding. We're gonna be grinding that fantasy.
So as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. This is not the last time we're going to touch linebackers and tight ends. We will circle around to it, get more in depth once July ends. Training camp is kicking off. So thanks for watching. stay tuned for the next time and stay healthy.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.